You're ready, huh? Okay, so what I'm going to do is move some stuff around a little bit so we can open up your Pokemon cards. Today we are making Spinnerack, which he called Spiderack. And we're going to open up some cards.
Yeah.
Let's go ahead and change this just a little bit. Yep. Here's Kabuto pillowcase that I made last week. Got fuzz and everything all over the place because I haven't cleaned up all my space yet.
Cracks me up that Chip always wants to be held for this.
For this one?
For the
Really?
Yeah.
It's funny. Okay, just got to get this all out of here real quick. We finally pulled our very first full art card from Perfect Order the other day. That was a Pokemon.
Mine.
And it was a bird. I suddenly realized I don't remember the name of the bird. I don't think you care about this one, do you?
I know it.
No, you know it? Okay.
Uniqueness.
Yeah, I'll make it eventually. Okay, here is Vance's pack of the day, of the week. Ooh.
Oh, you keep it.
Yeah, I keep it. I've already got one. You can have that one. Ooh, Snorlax.
Ooh.
Unique one.
I'll make a Snorlax eventually.
Yeah. I accept.
Yeah, can we keep this one too?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Dedenne. You know, I kind of like Dedenne. Yeah, that's a cute one.
Look at Garnet.
Ooh. But Mommy will like that one.
I keep it.
You keep that one?
I know it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got in my Pokemon cards.
You do have some of those.
I got all yours in this.
Yeah, you do have the other versions
I
of it.
got teeny tiny one.
All right, what's next?
Swords.
Sword and key.
Key one. Pokemon one.
Oh, the big
I love
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, the Tyrant turns into that one.
Yeah, where's Tiny one?
I don't know. I think it's over there.
We'll find it.
You're a fan of dinosaurs, so that's pretty cool. All right, excellent. Nothing too super major in here.
I got this
Yeah.
trunk.
All right, these ones you don't want, but all the rest of them you do.
I take Pokemon.
Yep, go ahead. You can take them all. I'm going to keep this card here, though, today, okay?
I miss my ski. I
Yeah, but I'm going to keep it here just because that's what I'm kind of making today, okay? All right. All right, go on. Get out of here. All right, so back to the plushes. Here is last week's plush. Let me see if I can get a better angle on it. It turned out okay.
love. I got this thing small.
You found the small dinosaur? Yeah? Cool.
I got teeny tiny Pokemon.
It's not quite as goofy as it could be. Yes, sir.
I keep it.
Yeah, okay, you keep it. The idea for this one, though, was meant to be a pillowcase. So I actually do have, you could take the pillowcase completely out. When I sewed these on, I kind of did a little bit fast. It's hard to do because every time I've ever sewn on something like this, it's been on a plush itself. But I couldn't do that here because with the pillow inside, if I sewed it in, I would have sewed the pillow to it. So I had to try a few different things to see if it'll work. And the next one I'll clean up. But I don't think he minds if it's a little less than perfect. So Vance will get this one. But I think it turned out kind of cute. It was fun to try something new. And again, if I wind up making more, I'll put the back over the top of it. I'll make these longer. Vance, I'm talking. Unfortunately, you can't yell at me. I will eventually, I promise. Hey, Cat B. Cat B's been with us for quite some time. I was just showing everybody the finished version of last week's. Turned out okay. So let's go ahead and get this out of the way. Hopefully I don't drop too many different important things here. And I'm trying to just rearrange everything just a little bit. I had some weird problems trying to design today's Spinnerack. And I made this goofy drawing of them. I thought that was just goofy enough. Still cute, still has the same idea. But then I had these little thoughts about how, like, say your grandma saw this and you asked her for a crocheted version, she might turn that into a smiley face instead of what looks like a kind of a blank face here. And I thought it'd be kind of cute to make just a smiley face on his butt. So that's our plan, my plan. I'm not exactly sure how to phrase that. We're all in this together, or realistically, I'm the one doing it. I don't know. I want to be inclusive. I want to have fun. I'm probably overthinking the language involved. I did draw a few others too. I got, it's not a great picture of him because it's a picture of a picture, but I drew him, and his evolved form is in the back too. It's kind of hard to tell. I took a picture off my screen, which was fine for this guy because he was bright enough. But I know that if I brought those to the forefront, I could have taken a better picture of them. And I'm just a little bit behind. Today has been such a weird day. A couple days ago, or I guess almost a week ago, Friday. No, not a week ago. Friday, we had someone come out and look at our air conditioning unit, and they determined that they could actually fix it. So we went all of last summer and the beginning of the hot days this summer with no air conditioner because we thought they were telling us that we were going to have to replace it for like $11,000. So now I actually have an air conditioner in the house, and it feels amazing because Oklahoma weather is getting back to that 100 degrees, and it's all sticky and warm out there. So I've been kind of in a better mood, but then it seems like my baby's having trouble sleeping, or I'm just having trouble sleeping because I want to work more. So I try to stay up late. I'm working on different projects in the middle of the night. For example, I was working on making some sticker designs for an order that somebody had placed. Here, I'll show you what it is real quick. Tina Ta is the person who this is for. I didn't see. Maybe they're in here. Maybe they're not. But I've been working on putting together their plush mouse, which includes, in this case, a series of stickers. So there's the mouse itself. There's the little tattoo on the butt. And then some other custom stickers. So I had to do all this art. I was working on that over at night. I just have trouble sleeping, so I try to finish as much as I can, trying to get ahead, trying to stay behind, keep from falling behind. And it doesn't really help because then all of a sudden I'm just tired, and it's so aggravating sometimes, especially since it's summer and I'm trying to not be a tired parent. All right, let's see what we got here. What I'm going to do is I had the plan to make just the bean shape for the body, keep it real simple and fun. So that means that this is going to be the butt side. But I also want to applique this pattern onto the back. So in order to do that and remember it, because that's one of those things, I tend to forget the applique portions. And since all of these plushes are first figure out, all I do is I draw a digital version of it. I've drawn a digital version of all these, and I draw them out with the intention of them looking like they're going to look as the plush. Sometimes I get closer than others. So, for example, this isn't too far off. I got pretty close. It's not as tall, but I think it still looks cute as a wide version. And then sometimes, like for example, I made the Gengar, and it was so far off that I turned it into a Mimikyu. So then later on, I made that version of it. But now, what I do is, after I draw this out and estimate, I make a paper pattern that I don't test out. If I'm trying to make some brand new design for a plush that I do, what I tend to do is make 3 or 4 different cotton versions of it so that I can make adjustments and changes. Well, more of the point for these Pokemon is that I want them to be fun to make. I want it to be kind of something that you can see that you can do without having too much of a plan. So in this case, so what that causes is that I forget all these little steps. It's like, all right, that's part of the plan, but since I've never done it before, I don't know what I'm doing exactly. It's just kind of roughly running through it. Well, I tend to forget the applique version, the portion. So I'm going to do that really early. We're going to do the smiley face on the butt. I think that I can do it a little bit high, but I have to leave enough space for the head. So let's go ahead and sew the head on so that the front wedge. Now, these wedges compared to a flat portion, the fabric tends to try and keep its shape. So yes, if you put stuffing inside of two flat pieces together, it's gonna round out. But this, instead of staying flat, is going to make an automatic curve. So it's going to have a lot more shape to it. And in fact, I need to cut this or do a little bit more sewing. When I sew these wedges, because what they are is literally just these triangle wedges with an angle on them, it sews so that it gives it this rounded point. But if I don't sew the end quite right, like for example right here, what'll happen is you'll also get a kind of a, instead of it being rounded, there's going to be a corner that sticks out. And I guess this isn't too bad. It looks like it actually did sew on pretty well. So we're going to leave that as is. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to sew the front of the body. This is going to be a pretty simple pattern. This will be, compared to some of the other ones that I've done, I've only got a few pieces. And one of the things I do to make them a little easier is for like the legs here, I'm going to sew those between the top of that body and the belly so that I don't have to worry about attaching them afterwards. As it is, I'm going to have to attach the fangs and the horn. But the less that I have to hand stitch together, the easier and more fun this can be. And that's kind of the whole point. I want people to see that what you can do is just kind of run with an idea. A simple sketch doesn't even have to be a detailed sketch. And you can have a lot of fun because then once you get used to it, you can start making stuff that's a lot more detailed, a lot more specific, like this little mouse here. This is going to be the giveaway mouse that I have. He's got a magnet in his head and a magnet in his arm. And the idea is that I can make different hats that he wears. And the idea of making a simple, fun plush to learn from helps out so much because then you don't have to worry too much about making mistakes. You're already planning on it kind of being something that isn't perfect. It's a little goofy, and you'll learn all these little tricks that makes things easier. And I do have patterns for this, but it took me forever to learn how to do these. The very first of these that I made took 4 hours. Now I've got it to where I can make one of these guys in about an hour and a half. It's just little things like that to kind of help. And I think that's my point is that for me, it's good for me to have an ability to show people a way to have fun working on something. All right, now I got to find the back. This fuzz has a direction to it. Now, what I like to do is imagine what direction I would pet these plushes. So I would pet across the back. So what I'm going to do is make sure that the fuzz follows that same direction. You can see, I think you can see pretty well that if I go against it, maybe not. This color isn't good enough for you to be able to tell when it goes against it. I'm trying to get some lighting so you can see how thick the fuzz is. There we go. See, that's how much fuzz there is. So it's not a huge amount, but it is a perfect amount to make this a very soft plush. So we've got the back end, the back end here. If I've done this right, the back will be a little bit of a sharper curve and the front will have like a smaller amount. What I'm going to go ahead and do is I am fully aware that the face on it faces one direction. So I'm going to go ahead and do that here. Oops, no, I wanted it upside down. That's right. In my drawing, I put it upside down. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to do what we call applique. That is essentially sewing one piece of material onto another piece of material using like an embroidery type stitch. And I don't need it to be perfect. So I'm just roughly placing it so that it's on the back here. And it's going to hold, as long as I keep the material shape, it should keep the smile on there. So I'm going to center my needle, which I'm sure you can't really tell. I tend to work on the right-hand side because it's easier for me to gauge the distance. But if I put it in the center, I can see both sets of material. I will just do a simple couple stitches for a back stitch to hold it in place. Make sure the needle's up. And what I'm going to do now, I'll show you. This shows the zigzag. That's how wide it's going to be from side to side. Right now at 0, it just stitches a straight line. When I move it over, the stitch, every time the needle comes down, it's going to go bop, 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 depending on what the number is. Then over here, this is the distance between stitches. So as I tend to stitch, it would be about this distance. One needle, every time it comes down, will hit one of these. But I'm going to bring it down all the way to almost 0. And what that means is between 0 and 3, I should have a nice, decent, long, and solid stitch line. So, I just hit a button. I don't know what I hit. So every time I take my phone out of my stand, I tend to wind up hitting buttons. But it's also the only way I can show you. So now, the way that I've got this set is that the needle's going to go left and right. It's going to do the zigzag stitch. It's going to do it real tight. And it's going to be one stitch on the material I'm attaching and one stitch on the neon green. So one stitch dark, one stitch neon. I don't think I have the ability to show you. I will try and see if zooming in will help. Let's see what that does. Yep, if you watch carefully, let me see if I can get it to focus in the right spot. Oops, right about here. Nope. Trying to get it to lock. It's very hard to tell. So you can see one needle goes in, one point goes in, and one goes off. I'm going to go ahead and zoom back out because I think it's having real trouble focusing on it. I will give it just a little bit of pressure when I pull, but here is what's going to happen. Now, if I've got the distance and the settings right, which from my experience is probably pretty close, I am leaving behind a trail of thick green thread stitched across the top of both of these. And when I get far enough, I should be able to show you without having to take it out. But I also have to move a little bit slow. I have that wedge that I sewed, and what's happening is it's causing it to bunch up because it's changing the shape of the pattern. It's not flat like this, so it's not staying, but there's that bubble, that lump, that curve that's there. And if you're watching me and you're thinking, I do this all the time and I know all the words for this, I don't. I am self-taught. I learned the fact that I know the word applique is just by pure chance from somebody else. When I was trying to help them with a project that they were doing, they said they did applique, and I just Google searched it real quick. I am all self-taught, so everything that I'm doing is just things that I have learned from trial and error. I don't know any of the technical terms for most of these things, and I bet that there are a lot of technical terms that I am missing. All right, I'm trying to make sure I get this smiley face on there. I want to make sure that it stays nice and flat so that it doesn't bubble up or curve or anything like that whenever I do get it finished. And it is a little bit hard because of this shape. Now I am pulling through because I'm pulling a couple layers of this minky material, but I'm trying not to pull it too hard, just enough to get it to come through. And you can see right here, that's what I'm talking about with the thick line. That's what's adhering this piece to this piece. So we have a lot of, oops, let me back out just a little bit here. I got a lot of space I've got to do this on, but it's not too bad. I mean, if you watch, I'm moving pretty quickly. If you have a wider stitch, of course, the machine moves faster. If I were to let it go on its own without putting any pressure on it, it might go just a little bit slower. But I'm really not trying to speed up this process. The truth of the matter is I have learned that even if I sped it up, all that would happen is there would be a gap in my stitch, and then I'd wind up just having to go over the whole thing a second time, which is a good thing to know. You can do that. If you are sewing, say, you've got a black line that you wanted to do, like if I decide I wanted the outline of that to be solid black, and you realize that you can see the fuzz through it, all you have to do is just go over it a second time. If you go too fast, if the stitch is slightly off, maybe it got stuck on you at some point. It is pretty easy to go back over. Trying to make sure I keep everything flat, smooth. This is not a super thrilling portion of sewing, but the truth of the matter is it's not like sewing is so exciting as in general. And I think it's kind of important for you to see, because if you are interested in learning how to sew, let's say, for example, like reason I started sewing, and encourage more viewers to share. Oh, thank you. Thank you, Andy Tabek. I appreciate that. When I first got the idea to sew is because my kid's sister was pregnant, and I started thinking about how there's not all that many cool plushes out there, and all you can get is the commercial stuff, and every now and then something cool might come out. But that I could make my own, and I could probably make some really cool ones. So I kind of just picked up a sewing machine and just started running with it, trying different things and learning. So if you're watching this and you're thinking it'd be kind of really neat to have your own plushes, this is a good way to really get started. My simple plushes that I make on this day, on Monday, are meant to be something that if you decided that you wanted to just pick up, knowing that it's goofy and that you don't have to be perfect on it, then it makes it a little bit easier to run with. I know how hard it can be to follow somebody else's directions on a very difficult process. I used to, and I still love to do origami, but I have never found an origami book that had real simple ones beyond, like, a bird, and made it easy instructions. And if you start off with something you really like, and it winds up being something goofy compared to what it's supposed to look like, it gets discouraging. So if I make something goofy, you like it, you can use the simple pattern, make something new. It doesn't have to be a teddy bear like what everybody else tends to find, and have a lot of fun. I'm sorry I'm not talking today. I'm catching up with school. I skipped a couple days for my birthday. Hey, happy birthday, Cat B. Cat B is going to school to care for people. And I think that that's awesome. And I think my smile is a little bit too high up, such a small body. So you take care of your schoolwork, Cat B. Don't worry about us. But I'm still going to put my eyes on here. So my intention was to make this a little bit smaller than some of my other plushes have been. And the reason for that is because it's kind of hard to know how big things are. And the way that I was working was causing me to make bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger plushes. So I'm trying to get back in track of making a fair and small size, because I really think it'll be a lot easier to work smaller. And another cool thing, let's say, for example, I do my pattern for one of these and somebody decides that they want to do it. If I start small, you could always take it to like a copy store and have them increase it by 20%, 50%, 100%. And you can make bigger versions of what I have done. So if you are interested, please let me know. I've made more than a couple of these from requests. For example, I made both Snivy and Rapidash. Both of those were special requests. This one was a request from my wife. So every now and then I'm trying to do some for her as well. If you were with me when I opened, I opened up a pack of Pokemon cards with my son. And he's the one who tends to get all of these plushes when I first make them. So far, he hasn't hated any of those, so I'm really happy about that. He's got lots of requests because everyone is his favorite, but I can't be upset about that either. And one of the things that winds up coming out of this is that he's got a whole bunch of plushes now. And every now and then we'll have a battle, which is a lot of fun too. It makes me smile when he winds up in the middle of the night grabbing one and cuddling with it, which if you've got kids, that in itself is almost a big enough pool to learn how to make something. If you make something for your kid and they love it and then they cuddle with it in the middle of the night, I can't explain how happy that can make you feel, even if it's just such a tiny little happiness. So if you decide that you are interested in learning and any of you want to, do feel free to reach out. I am always happy to help. If you wind up getting a pattern from me, I'm incredibly happy to help with that too. Basically, I'm a simple guy, and I like the idea of helping people as much as I can. This smiley face is going to be a goofy looking smiley face. And that's just because it's unplanned. I didn't size this down. I didn't move it over. I didn't do any extra steps. I designed it, drew it up. I made the paper pattern in one go. Well, actually, in this one, I made it in two goes because the body was kind of wrong. But the relevance is that, I just kind of ran with it. So the smiley face is going to be kind of goofy looking. And again, whenever I do this applique, I do an embroidery type stitch, whereas a wide stitch, oops, let me go ahead and zoom in just so you can see. It's a wide stitch, and I bring it really tight so that it does link the two of these together nice and solid. Let's see, what did you say? Speaking of learning, I went to build a bear for mine and my son's birthday, and my bear didn't have. Oh, it didn't have. We learned last time that the messages that you send on live have limitations on the number of characters. So we had this kind of goofy conversation yesterday where she left off right in the middle of something, and I had no idea what was happening. Didn't have tread, and they had to sew it. But by the time we came home, I had to redo my bear's back. Well, that's a bummer. So basically, it didn't have that real simple string that they put in the back. I'm surprised they even have a sewing machine there or needles and thread. But the cool thing is that because you know how to sew, you were able to kind of get that sewn up pretty quickly, weren't you? You'll have to show me your bear. I'm very curious as to what it looks like. I haven't been to Build-A-Bear in so long, and I know that they do these different Pokemon every so often. I have been tempted more than a few times, but the nearest one is so far away that it's not even worth trying. Especially with the way scalpers kind of work. I would have been surprised if there had been any left if I had made that full-on trip. Okay. Now, whenever you are closing up your applique, you do want to backstitch as well. And the reason for that is it helps set your thread in place, and you don't have to worry about it coming unwound or unthreaded, because if you go through all this work to sew all the way around something and you don't backstitch it, and then it starts pulling out, it's just going to keep rolling all the way back. It's going to undo the entire stitch. So keep that in mind as well. We want to backstitch as often as you can. I'm willing to bet money that someone will say always backstitch, but I've been in circumstances where there's no point in it. For example, I might not always backstitch on the edge of something like this, as long as I can get the stitching started, because I know that I'm going to sew this way, and that when I do the next stitch, that's going to hold it in place. And it kind of saves me a little bit of trouble. So this is going to be, oh no, that's going to be, that's going to be so bad. All right, so when I put this together, the horn's going to be about here. The eyes are going to be about here. This was going to be kind of a little bit more goofy looking than I had intended. I should have slid this back just a little bit further. They had needle and thread, but I only had to use seam print on one piece, and it came apart. It's the Star Bear, and I got to name it Star. Cute! Yeah, I would not be surprised. The way that when you close up most stitches, or close up most bears and stuff, it is one stitch. Even the one that they have that's built into it it's a thicker stitch, but it is just one thread, and they just pull it tight. All right, so before I do anything between these two, I do have to sew the legs, but basically I'm going to wind up sewing these two pieces together like this, and I'm just going to stick the legs in on the sides here. Normally, I would switch the thread. Since I'm going to be using yellow, I would actually switch the thread and just make it yellow instead of this green. But I think today we're going to be okay just doing Just kind of a little bit of run with it kind of situation. So I'm going to sew the legs. It looks like I've got enough material. I can do at least 2 legs. I should be able, maybe even 3 legs across. I'm just going to fold it in half. This is the easiest way to do this. Now, normally what I would do is I would draw out on a piece of paper the shape of the leg. I would cut that out, and then I would repeat it over and over again. But as you can see, my legs do not need to be perfect. So this is a very simple and easy process for making that shape of leg. Yeah, I'm just going to go ahead and start right about here. Put my needle back on the right-hand side. Now, if this was sewn on both sides, it would be a little bit flatter. If I sew it on one side, this is going to round out a little bit, which honestly doesn't bother me and doesn't really mean much to me one way or another. I'm just pointing it out because I happen to realize that that's going to be a thing. And let's see, if this is the size of my body, I want the legs to be about this long. So just a few more inches. And then I'm going to curve this. Again, not worried about being perfect. I really just kind of muffed that. You can see that it's a super not rounded. Normally I'm way better than that. I'm embarrassing myself here. See that? That is not a curve at all, really. That's kind of jagged and crazy. But, again, not too concerned. Let's see if I can get all 4 legs out of this. I'm not even concerned with making them the same length or width. And that's all part of the joy of making it a little bit more goofy. Live restrictions. Okay. Submit feedback. No. Not net. Dang it. I've got to, let's see. I'm saying the wrong words, apparently. Live restriction for some audiences. Your live contains themes that may be uncomfortable and or been restricted. Reasons. Commercial disclosure and paid marketing. This is not paid marketing. Nobody's paying me. I'm trying to avoid something that's going to look like marketing. And I know part of it is because I keep saying the trademarked word. But it's kind of hard not to sometimes. Okay. That's a little bit better. Now, when it comes down to it, this darker thread might show up on the other side of this material. I don't think it's going to be too bad, partly because this material is so fluffy that it tends to hide the seam and the crease. But also, because what I'm sewing is a green and yellow theme, if it shows a little bit of green on the edges, I don't think it's going to hurt anything. And I think one of the good things about this is that it's going to show people that whenever you're working on something like this, you don't have to worry too much about having every single color of thread. You can work with what you've got, what type of material you have, what kind of threads you have. Sure, if you've got more options, go for it. But if you're just starting, I know it's not a whole lot of fun to have to go and buy a whole lot of material to figure out something that you're not even sure about. So now you'll see that worst case scenario, you can see a little bit of the thread, but maybe you won't. Maybe you'll see just how well it hides, and that'll be a good feeling too. Make you feel a little bit more reassured about just getting started. Oops, turned that one weird. Again, a lot of what I'm doing, that just snapped my thread. That's not a problem. All I did was when I brought it off the edge, and I kept sewing, it accidentally just kind of snapped because it didn't dig into anything. So the mechanism kind of pulled to tighten like it's supposed to, and there was nothing there to tighten against. I just had to rethread it real quick. All right, that gives us 4. See, I've got 4 yellow, and I'm going to do 2 green. It might be when we were talking about Build-A-Bear. That is possible. I have a feeling that if I mention certain words that it knows as being trademarked, that it starts saying, oh, you must be trying to sell something but not disclose it. So we're going to limit you. but it doesn't realize that people talk about things without having anything to do with those things. Like if I were to sit here and talk about the Avengers long enough, it would probably say, oh, you're trying to do something with Marvel. Which does make me laugh because all I can think now is how sad I am that the Marvel movies are no longer anything that I look forward to watching. I wonder if people still feel that way. I know for a long time I was seeing a lot of posts about people not liking the new movies coming out. And I am a movie fan. I like stories more than anything else. But I was also a fan of several of those characters. But that's also why I started doing my Wednesday. On Wednesday, I do a weird day where I make strange things. For example, let's see if I've got anything here. Nope, I don't have any of my stuff, for example, here today. I'll get one here in a minute. But I made these, I made a headless mouse. So I made one of these mice, but the head comes off and it reattaches with a magnet. I made a Cthulhu. I've made the jumping mouse from Coraline. So I get to have a lot of fun with it. And what kind of started it is I like horror movies. And I like the idea of making plushes based on horror movies. Sometimes they can be cute. Sometimes they can be scary. And I just thought it would be a lot of fun to start doing that. And I'm trying to work on finding time to work on some stories. I do write. I love to write. And I just haven't had time to do that lately. But I'm trying to I had this idea of something I could turn into an animated video series. So it's a whole story. And involved in that story will be almost like a video game. So I started working on animating that. But I haven't finished the story. So I've got a whole lot of steps to that. And I'm trying to readjust my nighttime schedule so that I can work on things. So this should be enough for me to do 2 more legs. Make sure I go the right direction with it, though. I have to make sure I get the whole piece in there. Wait, do I have enough from the top? Almost. Get that out of the way. I think it is AI based and just putting words it knows and it just watches the news. And I just was it funny? My wife is the type of person who really likes the scary movie type movies. I haven't seen one in a long time, and I have not heard anything really about the new one. So that's kind of neat. Hopefully she'll end up liking it. It'll be something that maybe we get the chance to watch. We don't get a whole lot of time. We've got the baby. We don't have nearby family. We've got a couple friends in the area, but we also don't spend a whole lot of time trying to get babysitters. All right, so if I do these legs, all I need is 2 legs. I'll do them. I got to make sure I get that folded all the way over. Okay. Again, I'm not worried about exacts. I'm not worried about them being all the exact same. I'm not worried about any size difference. Just getting that basic shape is all I'm after. Trying to do the back stitch as well. And with this one, I also have the benefit of it being roughly the same color as what I am sewing. So that's helpful. I don't have to worry about it showing through at all, which will give you an opportunity to see what I'm talking about between the 2 differences. When the color matches and when the color doesn't match. All right, I'm going to make this one a little bit longer. I think it's a little bit longer. It's kind of hard to tell when I can't see the back end of it. Wait. Am I sewing? Yeah, I'm still sewing. I thought I ran out of thread in my bobbin for a second there. Super exciting, I know. Cut these loose. That gives me all my legs. As you can see, this is meant to be very simple. Even adding the horn afterwards or the fangs should be pretty easy. Now, I'm thinking that because of the way that I've got this laid out, the size of the body and everything, what I may wind up doing is adding the things to the bottom instead of sewing them onto the face, which means that they'll kind of stick out a little bit weird, but I'm going to have to, what I'm going to probably wind up doing is sewing most of this up and just leaving the face unsewn so that I can use that to see and then determine if I need, how I'm going to add the things. So, so the AI is suggesting what I write down, and it says sewing a spooky spider plushie, share your favorite horror movie character. And don't get me wrong, it's kind of crossing over the different things that I say, but you're kind of swinging and missing there, AI. If I said AI, go home, you're drunk often enough, do you think that it would just put me more on ban restrictions? Like it would get mad at me for making fun of it? I'm not a fan of AI at all. I am super not a fan of AI. Anything between the way that it rips off artists to the consumption of stuff and the pollution and all that stuff, it really bugs me. But I'm also trying to be tolerant of it because I know that it's already integrated in and so many people are just so happy with it. But then it does something like this to me where it sends me on restriction for no good reason, makes weird suggestions that don't really make sense for me. And I imagine all the people that are being misled by different AI prompt searches and stuff. And one of the things that I do is, since I do digital art, I have started making it where I also post that it is not AI created. And I say that because I do these slightly choppy styles that are meant to be unique, but sometimes look like they were created without purpose, even though literally every stroke of what I do is done purposefully. And then speaking of that, I have been thinking about making little stickers that go over old Pokemon cards. For example, just taking one of these cards that we don't use, and just say something like this, and then making stickers, because I have a sticker printer, and printing out my versions to match the plushes. So somebody like this, and I would put it in a background and give pretend moves and stuff like that. I just think that it'd be kind of fun to do. And then I could just cut out the excess of the sticker and then basically have these trading cards. All right, I believe that this is the front. Nope, this is the back. Okay. Here is my front. So if I put my head here, I'm going to start putting my arms right about, let's see, here. Yeah, that should be good. That should give me just enough space for everything. So what I'm going to do is, instead of sewing these on individually, I'm going to tuck them in between the top and bottom of my plush. Let's see. I want to put the seam on the bottom so that it doesn't show up, and it's going to cause these to kind of round out a little bit. No, I think I'm going to put them at the back. I think it would sit better. So if I try to fold it in half this way, it will be rounded, but I think that it has a weird feel to it. The next question I have is, if anybody's interested in helping me decide, do you think I should stuff these legs or leave them unstuffed? Do you want to see what it would roughly look like if they were stuffed? Because when they do not have fluff inside of them. Let me go ahead and move this back just a little bit so I can work. When they don't have fluff inside of them, they are very limp, very floppy. If I were to instead, let me go ahead and just kind of fill one up real quick. Something about the same size. If I fill them up, I don't have to like max it out. I don't have to make it really full, but I can do just enough. Let me see if I can get this to work here. Basically, all I'm doing is putting just enough fluff in there so that it has a little bit of shape. And I'm going to fill the body pretty full, so that should be pretty solid. But here's the difference. So they don't flop around, and it does flop around. So just a little bit? Yeah, okay. I'll definitely do that then. I'll do a little bit less than I did for this test one, just enough to kind of give it a little bit of shape, I suppose. It'll still should be just a little bit floppy. And I'm going to leave that one floppy. I think that that'll make it kind of funny. Obviously, I did it on purpose. I've got the forethought to it now. But I think what'll happen is it'll look like it was an accidental leg, and it'll just be a floppy leg. But I think you're right. I think the rest of them having just a little bit of fluff, what'll happen is it'll look like it was an accidental leg, and it'll just be a floppy leg. But I think you're right. I think the rest of them having just a little bit of fluff, Cecilia. Thank you, by the way, Cecilia. I really do appreciate the feedback. I think having just a little bit of fluff will be a good shape to it. It'll help it kind of take shape a little bit better. And then having that one super floppy should be kind of funny too. I'm trying to imagine in my head if I should do the fangs inside or out. And honestly, I think that there's no reason not to just go ahead and sew the fangs the same way. If I go ahead and just cut those real quick and then sew them into the body like I'm doing these legs, even if I don't like it, the next time I could always do it differently. If I hate it, I can unstitch it and then redo it. So I do realize that I forgot my red material. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and finish stuffing these up real quick. And then I'm going to run off and grab just a little bit of red material so I can make the fangs. As you can see, it's not hard to stuff these things, but it's not like they just easily go in. There's a little bit of a process to kind of get, especially when you're doing small amounts. I've found that small amounts, the needle goes right through, and it makes it a little bit more of a process, even with using the wide end. And yes, I am just using a chopstick. The fluff that I get actually comes with chopsticks. Every time I get one, there's more fluff or more chopsticks in each package. So my assumption is that that's pretty common usage for a way to stuff them. One more to go, and then I'm going to go get my red material. I'm going to do a couple of goofy little things. What I may wind up deciding to do, depending on time, and it's actually kind of early. This is coming together really quick. Usually they don't seem to come together quite this quick. I did make this pattern a little bit simpler. I had the idea of making the head separate. If you look here, you can see that there's a round part for the head and a part for the body. I also thought about putting the little separate colors in there. But I wanted, again, I'm aiming for something that's fun, that doesn't require all those specific details. So doing it a little bit easier makes it a little bit faster. Use a pencil eraser. You know, that might work too, because then it would have a little bit of a grip to it. I'll have to try that soon. I'll get like a wooden pencil that's unsharpened. I'm going to be right back. I'm going to go get some red material. Oof. All right, I'm back. Thank you for that suggestion, Cecilia. I think a pencil might actually work really well for that. I'm going to have to try that. I tend to fold in new information pretty regularly, trying to do different things, trying out different stuff. I like the idea of learning and doing better, but I also know that that's kind of weird for people too. A lot of people kind of get stuck in doing things a certain way. I think if I'll do it as a point. I'm going to do pretty much the same way I did the legs. I'm going to fold it over, and I think based on what I'm looking at, they can be about the same thickness. I have to make them a little bit long because what's going to happen is I'm going to angle them a little bit so that instead of sticking straight out, I want them to be like this. So that means I have to make them so that I can sew in this direction and still have plenty that sticks out. So making them a little bit long is not going to be a horrible thing. And again, I would change this to red and I've got red right here. But I think that for the point of being lazy and trying to make it easy, I don't think that this is going to be a bad thing. So we're just going to run with that. Now, the difference between this and what I did with the legs is I am going to sew to a point and then sew back down. So instead of just sewing to the edge of the material and rounding it out, in this case, I'm actually going to sew an actual triangle. And the reason for that is because I want it to have that pointed look of the fangs compared to this. So you can see where it's very rounded. I do want it to have that point. So go ahead and sew pretty long in. Get all this out of the way. Oops. Trying to reposition my camera a bit so to kind of show what I'm doing here. Up. Oh no, that's going to get caught on everything. Back this way. I should have probably cut my material loose. Now, if it turns out that I didn't make it super long, that's going to be okay. It just means it's going to have like a little nub of a fang instead of like a really long fang, which is kind of what I think would look better anyways. Try a slight curve. Well, I thought about that. I thought about actually doing like a full-on curve for it so that it kind of arches around. But I think the reason I don't want to is because I want it to be a little bit more goofy than scary. And I think the more similar to an actual spider it gets, the less fun it becomes and the more serious, I guess would be the word. I'm not sure if that would be the right word for it either. And if I do this, if I'm right in the way that this looks, it will look kind of funny and awkward. All right, now I can go ahead and I don't have as much to worry about. And when I actually drew the first one up, I did draw it with that curve. And when I looked at it afterwards, I thought, nah, it just seems too serious. A little bit too far. All right, let's see how that works. I think, yeah, it's a little bit of a sharper curve, so that's going to be more of a point. Again, if I don't like that, I will make another one. But let's see what it looks like. One of the things I will have to do is I have to make sure I trim pretty close to the edge on the point here, because otherwise that material will cause it to back up, to fill up in that spot. And let's see how we feel about this. It's going to be hard to tell before it's all sewn together, but I think that that's going to be pretty decent. And then when I sew it, I'll sew it like this, and that'll keep it nice and small. Since the whole plush is already pretty small, when I sew it at that angle, that should keep it looking just enough. And then I think that that'll also make it look like it's curved, because they'll be kind of like that, as opposed to being sewn on in the original plan, which would have had them looking a little different too. All right, we're going to run with this. Let's go ahead and put all my legs in. I got to remember what my front is. I keep forgetting what direction I had that facing. I think I have it. Yeah, I think I have it facing away. Yep. So here's the fuzz going down. Let's go ahead and get these in first, just because. Remember, you want to get them on the inside. So the part that you are keeping or that you are sewing over will be the opening. If I've got that as my center point, which I drew on there on purpose, move this just a little bit in. Try and make sure I get just a little bit of an angle. Sorry, I'm not sure how much of this is actually making it onto camera. So that should give me a little bit higher on this end, so that should bring it in just a little bit. And then the same over here. I'm going to have to add a pin to it. Again, it doesn't have to be perfectly centered. That's my center line. So that should be okay right about there. Again, trying to do it at the angle that I want. That should, if I am right, have it pointing in. They may even be touching. No, this should be far enough away. So hopefully, add a little stuff. You think so? Okay, sounds good. We'll give that a shot. Just a pinch. It will definitely help it take its shape a little bit better. Now, I don't want to add too much. It's so small that adding too much will put it overflowing as well, which isn't horrible because what would happen is it'll just kind of disappear into the stitching. Where's my center line? There we go. Get out of here. You're in my way. Once again, try and curve. That should be a good curve to it. It's going to be a little bit harder to get my pins through, but that is okay. And then a little bit of stuff here. Oops, did I move that? Yep, I did. Every now and then I will move the comments, and I won't be able to see the new comments that come across. I am doing way better at seeing comments on here now. I used to not see them at all. I would get to the end of my stream. I would hit the buttons on TikTok, and then it would tell me that so-and-so said 14 different things, and I didn't see any of them. Where did my center line? Oh, there it is. All right, that should... I may have to start the stitch here. Ow, almost just stabbed myself. That sucks. All right, so that should give me, yep, that feels like they are moving inwards. It moves like they're going towards each other. Now I can start adding my legs in. Since I don't have to worry about making these perfectly centered, it makes it so much easier. It'll be fun if they are not, if they're kind of lopsided compared to each other. Now, whenever you are making a plush and you do decide you want things to be in perfect spots, one of the things that I have found is by adding a little notch or line to my pattern and drawing that on. I'll show you what I'm talking about here in just a second. What I did here at the center is I drew just a little line. You can barely see it, but that lets me know where the front center is. Now, you could do stuff like that for where you want the legs to go once you figure out the exact spots that you like them. And the more easy you make a difficult pattern for yourself, the better. I promise you. I have made some very difficult patterns. Small pieces, arches, curves, all these different things. And the more information I give myself to work with, the easier it gets when I work on them. I have a feeling that I've got some facing one direction and some facing another direction, but I think this is going to be okay. Once again, aiming for the not perfect, just roughly planned. I didn't even bother to look and see if Spinnerack has a stinger? That's the word I'm looking for. Or anything else. I'm pretty sure he's got a shape that would be relevant. Hi, Foxy. Today we are making this, which is a super simplified and goofy version of this, which I am not saying the words to because it's already tried to restrict me for saying words that are copyrighted. All right, now, whenever you're sewing your plushes together, you have to keep in mind where you're going to close up. What you want to do, in my case, I like to keep the part where I close the plush up in the least obvious spot. You'll find a lot of times that, like for example, they were talking about Build-A-Bear, the plush will sew together on its back. For me, I'm going to do it here on the butt, and I'm actually going to start right about here. I'm going to sew all the way around. I'm going to stop right about here. That'll give me about 1.5 inches to 2 inches worth of space so that I can flip this right side out, and it's where I'm going to stuff the fluffing in there. So whenever you're doing any kind of plush, that is something you have to keep in mind. It is something that has to be done. It's even if you're making a goofy version. If you don't do it, you're just going to wind up having to unstitch a section, maybe re-sew it so it makes it a little bit stronger. A lot of little things like that could happen. And it's not the worst. I've done it before. I've done it while live. I had somebody get on, mention it just moments after I accidentally closed it up before, which just made it even funnier. So Another thing to keep in mind, you can leave your pins in. It's easy enough to take them out under most circumstances. Sometimes the plush is so small that it's hard to get in there, or you've got to do different angles. But if you do leave your pin in, there is a chance that your needle will hit it. And here's where I show my example. This is a pin, and my needle hit right there. Slammed right into it, bent it in multiple directions, and broke my needle. It can happen, and it's super annoying. And the more material you're sewing through, the more likely that is to happen. So right here, where I'm doing my first leg, I'm sewing through the top, the bottom, and the top and bottom of the leg itself. Not to mention the seam, where it's right-sided out, has an extra fold of material. So there's 1 or 2 points where the needle might strike and be sewing through 6 layers of material, plus the fluff. So I do tend to take the needles out whenever I get to doing something like that. It's a little bit safer, a little bit easier. I'm already having to do this extra work to get it to go through the machine. I don't want to force myself to have more problems. Do it just a little bit at a time here. Now, whenever you get to the points where you are sewing through multiple layers like this, I do find that it is easier to pull your back hand. You're not really pulling so much as just applying an even amount of pressure so the material actually slides a little bit easier. In the room on the shelf, if you're looking towards the center, left of the center. And it's about shoulder level. My studio room is organized, but also not organized. All right. Now to the smallest one. This one's going to be a little bit harder because of the direction of the needles, I think. Looks like I got in there. Good. Oh, there we go. Got the needle out. I messaged you about project, and if you have questions, just ask. I definitely will, Foxy. I remembered we talked about it last time, and I was keeping an eye out for your messages. I was not going to bug you about it. I figured if you wound up changing your mind, you didn't need somebody reminding you of what the original thought was. I had that happen a lot. I do a lot of different types of projects, and I need models, and I need help. And a lot of times people just change their mind on what they're willing to do. And I don't like to bug people about it. And it's so hard to find models that are willing to work with me because I don't do just cute plushes. There's a lot of weird things that I paint and draw and work on. I do leather work, so I've made like corsets and bondage material. I do horror stuff. Like I'm working on a horror story right now. I do surreal art. So I have to keep in mind anybody who works with me might change their mind at any time. And that's just the way it is. So I wasn't going to bug you. And I will definitely check that message and we can figure out what we're going to do. I recently started trying to set up the TikTok shop, I guess. I think I've got my plushes on there now. I'm not sure if they've been approved or what. But I'm also trying to figure out how to do that thing where you send off to different companies for giveaways so that you can talk about it. I'm like, man, I would do so much art stuff if I was given more art things to work with. So if anybody knows how to do that, I'd be happy to talk to somebody about that because I need some help figuring that stuff out. It's a dress idea. Sounds fantastic. And I will do my best to not interject too much. If I am saying things that kind of lead in different directions than what you want too many times, just tell me. I am more than happy to back off. Looks like we've got a nice rounded body here. Let me go ahead and back up just a little bit. And we have been on for 45 minutes, so I got to solve a puzzle. And that's done. All right, I think I got all my needles out. Yep, we should be good. All right, let's see what we've got. The next step is going to be adding eyes. And then I'll add the horn last if we have time. Oh, come on. You can do it. Look. The things turned out awkward and cute. Oh, no, the more ideas, the better. I want to do fashion line, but I need help getting started. I'm definitely happy to help between sketches, ideas, prototypes, perhaps, tips on sewing things. There's the bottom of it. I sometimes wonder if they have different designs. Like most of the pictures show the top. So I sometimes wonder if you looked at the bottom of some of these that they had different stuff. And I say that because there's a couple Pokemon that have these weird little details hidden on them that you don't notice until you flip it over. But there's also not a whole lot of reference material when all you're trying to do is make a goofy version of something like I am. All right, so here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go ahead and put a whole bunch of fluff in here. And then we're going to see where we're going to put the eyes. I think that because of where I put the smile, there's going to be a little bit of confusion and space issue. And now it kind of looks like a tick, which is also comical to me. That should be enough fluff for us to determine the eye position. So if I just put the eyes here, let me see. I've got my big eyes right here. I'm going to use some pliers to roughly approximate their position. This just makes it easier than having my hands all in the way. Oh, let me go ahead and turn this a little bit. All right. This is what I'm thinking. And then I can still put the horn at the top. I can make it like a tiny horn. But what do we think? Do we like the big eyes? Should I make them closer? Should I make them farther apart? I think if they're close, they look kind of goofy. And they also look a little bit more spidery. Farther apart, it starts to look more like a frog, I think. Maybe these eyes are just too big. I don't think so. I think the big eyes should work. Especially since our reference has such big eyes. But if I did small eyes, it would definitely be a little bit more goofy. Do you guys want to see smaller eyes on here? One higher than the other, so we do like right about here. I like the big eyes. All right, Charlotte. All right, Foxy. Excellent. So what do you think about one being higher, Charlotte? Foxy suggests one a little bit higher. And they don't have to be like much. You know, when you look at it, if it's not even, it is easy to tell that they are not the same size or same position. So I'm looking for one other vote for off-kilter skew. Excellent. That's what I needed. All right. So I'm going to do that. That gives me, don't drop your leg. My eye. Okay. So if I do that, I can now use my trying not to lose the position of my eyes before I get set. Okay, that should be enough for me to tell where they're at. I used to use a pair of seam rippers to just cut a hole into the eyes. And one day while I was on live, somebody told me if you use an awl, it keeps you from tearing the material, and it just spreads the threads, basically, creates a gap, and that keeps your material from being quite as vulnerable. It doesn't damage the material the same way. So that's just going to the point of, if you guys have a suggestion, if you're telling me something I'm doing wrong, I am more than happy to learn. And these safety eyes are freaking huge, so I have to kind of get it in there somehow. Okay. I think I'm started. Nope, not quite. There we go. There we go. Let me get my bag again. Safety eyes come in two parts. They have the eye, which has this backing with the ridges. And then it has, if I can get some of them out, I have to get two out, obviously. There we go. Washers. And these go onto the back to hold it in place. They catch on the ribs, the ridges. I'm trying to see if maybe I can adjust the light. Nope, that's too much. Also too much. I'm trying to show the ridges, but it looks like I can't adjust that light properly. between touch. Just I'm trying to show the ridges, but it looks like I can't adjust that light properly between my two lamps. But here you go. And what it does is it holds it in place. Now with a smaller plush and smaller eyes, I will cut this off. I've also seen some people melt this down with like a hot spoon, and that just further secures it to the washer. So there's a lot of little things you can do, and you could find these in all different sizes. This is the eyes that I use for my plushes, my mice. I've got a whole box full of different sizes. You could also get noses and other things as well. I have seen colored ones that look really pretty. So if you're trying to make a specific colored plush, a little bit of searching online. I found some on Etsy a few times and some on Amazon. So really just kind of look around. You'll find plenty of options if what you need is colors. See if I can get this to stretch that hole out just a little bit. Come on. Try not to tear anything, but I definitely have to get it through, and it is huge, so. Okay, let's get the rest of this stuffing in there. We'll do a nice little reveal about it. I have to clean up my space. I've got chairs with material on it. I've got my side table is a horrible mess. I've got scrap material. I've got like 8 different types of thread over there, several different tools and scissors, just everything just piled up in place. This guy's going to look a lot more like a tick, which is going to be funny to me. Which is also cool because one of my favorites, and it's not in Gen 1 or 2, I started in Gen 2. So I started playing on gold. That's why I do Gen 1 and 2 for my Monday projects. But one of my favorites is Joltik. I love that little dude. And I want to make an actual version of him, which would probably be a little bit smaller than what this turned out to be. So one day soon, I might wind up doing that. But that's going to take a whole prep work. That's going to take prototypes and test versions because I want it to look almost exactly like the real one. And if I'm lucky, I'll find some way to like light it up. But I'm not really thinking that's going to be a thing. He's so cute. Thank you, Foxy. I kind of wanted it to be a little bit more bean-shaped. A little bit longer. But I think that this will work pretty well. Spread all this material out as best I can. I have found that overstuffing is better because it makes sure that you actually give the plush the shape that it's supposed to have. Otherwise, you'll have like little saggy parts or parts that just kind of don't stretch out quite right. And all this material and thread and everything out of my way. All this trash. Just threw it in my plush. There we go. Okay. I think that that's a good amount of fluff in here. Because it is only 7:17, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to finish off the horn today. I'm going to sew it on, and I'm going to sew this shut. This will be one of the first times I've actually gotten one completely finished in one day. Usually, I've got to add the arms or horns. I've got to do some adjusting to it so that I can get it to close up. But this one being pretty simple, pretty fun. I'm going to change my angle here. That's exactly what I want, is I want them to look like kids' drawings come to life. I go through all the effort of trying to figure out how to make something that I could easily draw. I could draw this like over and over again in so many different poses, but I wanted to make it look goofy and then turn goofy into a plush. And even with the things that are off, like for example, if I had the smiley face more towards the back, it still would have been completely goofy in such a fun little way. So now I've got my white. I did actually bring white out today. I'm going to go ahead and switch the thread out for this. Now, if anybody's curious, this is the process for switching out the thread here. I'm going to try and get as much of this as I can without it being completely blocking my way. Oh. There we go. Okay, so taking out the thread. Putting the next one in is pretty easy. So this is one of the steps that took me a while to perfect. It seems like you would be able to just run it through. And yes, I do know that other sewing machines are going to look different as well. But now I've got it brought down and through. I've learned that I have to press my hand to the top right here to hold that in place and pull down. What I do is I keep it steady, but I'm not, so that it tightens up, because somewhere in the mechanism here, it's like there's a spring. And the thread, if the thread is just setting on top of that spring, then it doesn't work. So you have to pull it so it goes into that spring. Now, I don't know if it's technically a spring or a grip or a clasp, but I know that essentially what happens is that for the longest time when I would rethread, I would just run it through and be done. And then when I was sewing, it didn't have any tension, so it didn't stay in place. I ruined so many projects, had to start so many projects over again because of that. And it was because I had to tighten it up inside there. Now, I don't know if that's something that other people know. I don't know if the instruction manual mentioned it. Pretty sure it did not. I remember reading the instruction manual to get started, and I don't think it said anything about trying to tighten it up like that. So it's one of those things that I just had to eventually figure out for myself. I did a lot of Google searches trying to figure out what was wrong. And then one day I just kind of changed what I was doing just enough. I was like, okay, that helped. And then just kept going with it. Again, all learning for myself. A lot of these things are things that people probably would have taught somebody, like in a classroom situation, or like mother to daughter, father to son kind of situation. But I didn't have that option. All right, so what I'm going to do with my horn is I'm going to do the same thing I did with the leg. So I sew on one side, and that'll give me a nice rounded edge. But I'm trying to think. I think I kind of want this to be just a tiny little horn. Like, I don't think I want it to be the big horn, because then it'll cover up the eye. But if I do just a tiny little horn, I think that'd be cute and funny. And then what I could do is in the future, I can move the smiley face into different positions. And I'll have more space to do like a bigger horn so that they look different from each other anyways. I think that makes it kind of fun. I did that with my chars. Every one I did, I made just a little bit different than the others. Sometimes stuffing a different part, sometimes not stuffing. So let's go ahead and make just a teeny tiny little horn. I might make it a little bit bigger than I want, but since it's going to be coming to a point, that means eventually it'll be as small as I want. Okay, simple enough. Get you back here. This is going to be my last necessary step. Tiny horn would look cute. I think it will. I think it'll be just funny enough. So I'm glad you agree. If everybody, just so everybody knows, if you're watching me and you have a suggestion, a lot of times I'm going to take it. For example, Cecilia suggested a couple times to stuff different parts. And honestly, I think it turned out great. There will be things that I do a little different or without suggestion. But I love the idea of being able to change this and do different things as I'm working with it based on what you guys like as well. Let's see how big this horn turned out. I think I want it to be about half that size. So I'm going to go ahead and cut some of this off. I am going to be cutting where the thread's at, which you normally don't want to do. And in fact, I'm going to go ahead, once I know that this is the right size, yeah, that's going to be a good size. I'm going to go ahead and right side this back in. And I'm going to go back over the stitching for that spot so that it doesn't come unstitched, because it will. If you're playing with this and the thread is not back stitched and is not secured, you can count on the idea that it will decide at some random point that it wants to come undone. Okay. A little bit of extra work there just to make sure. Cut off some of this excess material. There we go. Putting this back out, and we should be good to go. This I am definitely going to stuff. There we go. There's not a whole lot of room in there for stuffing, but I want it to be pretty solid. Now, again, I chose this one today because it's the one that my wife wanted. But if you guys want to see something from Gen 1 or 2, let me know. I'm running low on my first sketches. I've got Houndoom and Houndor drawn up. I've got a Croconaw drawn up. But I'm thinking about deciding to do a Totodile. But if you guys have something you'd like to see, feel free to message me. Comment on one of the posts with these guys in it. I will happily add sketches in. And if there's something you want, for example, somebody ordered one for their daughter's birthday. If there's something you'd like to order, send me a message. Not only will I make adjustments to the sketch to make it what you like, but I will make it my next live. Might be a lot of fun. And then I've been posting my lives on YouTube, which hasn't gotten any traction, but that's okay. The point of posting it is that you guys can watch these if you're trying to learn how to do something. Or say you buy one of my patterns, and because I'm not the best at making patterns, you need some help. You can watch online and you can see what I do, because I also tend to do my best to leave little tips as well. All the things that I've learned as I've kind of started doing this. And this should be really easy. Now what I'm doing is I'm basically just securing the end inside so that it doesn't come untangled or pull through whenever I am actually sewing it on. And that happens only because I'm using such a thick needle. And I use the thick needle because it is just a little bit easier on my hands. As you can see, this finger right here, constantly getting stabbed. Cecilia, off-center, excellent. So I'm glad you agreed, Cecilia. Can you do a fox one? Let's see. I know there's a couple foxes. Are you wanting like a fox? Like if I were to do a tiny Travel Buddy fox? Or are you talking about a fox version of one of these guys? Which I'm avoiding saying the words because, again, I've already been dinged once today. The answer is yes either way. The difference is when I would do it. If you found one of those guys that you like that is a fox and send it to me, I can start doing some sketches for it. Basically doing a goofy version like this. Or if I need to add that to my list of serious plushes, I can do that too. I do have quite a queue right now. Even right here, over here, I've got, let's see, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 mice that I'm trying to finish up. But on some days, it's a little bit harder to work on a project than it is on others, especially since it's summer vacation and my son is home. But yes, the answer is yes, Foxy. Just depends on what you're looking for, determines how long it'll take and when I would do it. So include that in another message at some point in time, and I will be more than happy to reply to that as well. Now, what I'm doing is, my understanding is it's called a ladder stitch. I know that it's called a ladder stitch when I close a plush up, and it's almost the exact same process. I'm just not 100% sure it's still called the same thing whenever it's sewing two pieces together compared to sewing two edges together. And all I do is a very shallow stitch in, then right back out. Very shallow. Pull it tight, and then go directly across and repeat. Get my fluff back into my horn here. As you can see, it is very simple. I've had it very reliable. I've had very few plushes that have lost anything that I've sewn on this way. And the simplicity of replacing it by using that same stitch is also there. Now, someday soon, I'm going to sit down and do some research. Maybe I'll find a book on sewing and find out if there's more, maybe a more secure version of this. I do know that if I were to right side this inside it out, I could see where these stitches are, and I could do a back stitch to further secure it. But I really don't know how necessary something like that is. For all I know, what I'm doing is the standard and is reliable to any professional. And I mean professional. I'm not just like somebody who works at a shop and does this all day. Because as you can tell, when iCatby was talking about their bear that they got built, there are times when all they've got is the simplest of stitches because it's fast and easy. They're not worried about it actually being strong and sturdy. Now to close this up, I like to finish in the body, the biggest part. So this is very small, so the biggest part will be the body. I'll go directly across, and once again, a very shallow stitch. But instead of going into the previous piece, you pull tight, wrap around your needle, then pull your needle. And that makes a nice knot. Don't pull too hard or you'll break your thread. And then you just put the needle right back in where it came out a random part of the body, as you can see right here. Don't stab yourself in the thumb. It really sucks if you accidentally stab yourself when you do that. Cut it off, and now your loose end is inside, and you don't have to worry about it coming off. I've got one more stitch to do. I'm going to go ahead and use the green for this one. I do actually happen to have neon green, but I chose to do the dark green so that you can see when I do the embroidery. And then I kept doing it so you can see how it turns out if you don't have every color of thread to match every color of your material. So here in a minute, when I close this plush up, you can see, I'll show you all the little seams, all the stitches. You'll see where you can see things and where you can't. And honestly, I think you're going to be pleasantly surprised that you don't have to worry too much about being perfect with any aspect of this. Once again, my needle is a bit thick. And just like what happens with the awl, where it moves the material, the threads of the material, it happens when I put my needle in. So I secure a little bit differently, just basically tie a little knot with it. Once again, I'm just going to be doing that ladder stitch. I came out here. I'm going to go directly across and do a shallow stitch. Oops, it caught my finger actually. Oh no. And now it's kind of knotted. Dang it. So that little section of my finger that's wounded, depends on how old the owner is, because babies put everything in the mouth. Whoa, what? One of the big ones, but extra cute. I'm not sure what you're talking about. Are you talking about like the parts that I'm sewing, Cecilia? I'm sorry, I looked away. I didn't look in time to see what you were saying that in regards to. And one of the bigger ones, I don't know if, what you just said, Foxy, if you're talking about one of the bigger copyrighted material versions, basically a goofy version of what I'm doing, or if you're talking about like an actual plush, like a custom designed plush. Oh, there we go. That should, now I just got to get my threads to line up again. There we go. Okay. This time without the oops. Any toy. Yeah, that's fair. Any toy. I got lucky. My son was not much of a put things in his mouth kind of guy. But yes, everything I work on, especially if I find out it's for a kid, I do my best to make sure that it is safe. These are about the extent of how small I'm okay with doing for kids. And I cut the backs of these eyes are sharp. They have a point instead of rounded like the big ones do. So I always cut these off because I like to make sure that if a kid squeezes, steps on, plays with, puts it in their mouth, people don't have to worry about getting hurt. That being said, I honestly have no idea what the liability of something like that would be. So just whatever I just want to see, I can definitely do that. I'll tell you what, I will look and see what they have in these guys, just to kind of see if there's an idea that kind of fits. And I have had some requests for foxes before, now that I suddenly remember. I actually had a request for a fox like this, so a tiny fox. I might adjust and make a pattern for that. It's going to be a little bit. I am finishing up a frog pattern, and I've got some plushes I'm going to make of some kids' drawings, some robots that I'm working on, and making a new plush is a bit of a process. I make these ones very simple on purpose, because if I try to put too much effort into it, I don't have the time sometimes, especially once a week. My son is home. He's 4 years old. He's about to be 5, and he needs attention. He needs help. I have to break away to teach him things so that he's not falling behind on school. And I don't think I'm doing good enough on that anyways. So what happens is there's that disconnect sometimes where I've got to set time aside for making new plushes compared to making easy, goofy ones. Come on, you could do it. I had a piece of string that got uneven. This is almost there. I don't know why this seems like it's taking so long. It's just a simple ladder stitch to close it up. And for some reason, it seems like it's taken like 30 minutes. Maybe it's because I'm yammering on too much. Think I talk too much? I hope not. I'm also thinking about, so I've been trying to find another day that I can do some plushes, do some work. I'm thinking I've got one of those game emulators that has like thousands of games on it. Thinking about like recording myself playing a game and then making a plush from that game. I'm thinking about like the bad guys from Icarus or Mario Brothers. More stuff that is technically copyrighted. That is copyrighted. No technicality about it. It is copyrighted. But that I could do just for funsies, just to kind of have something that I'm working on. Fan stuff, basically. So that would give me a good range of stuff. I'd have video games that I could do. I'd have horror stuff. I'd have this fan art stuff here. I like, my name is the Versatile Deviant on here because I like to do a lot of different things. Eevee. Oh, I've actually got an Eevee. I will show you the Eevee. And what I could do is, instead of doing like Eevee, I can do one of the other 5 or other 4 evolutions. No, you don't talk to. Excellent. Thank you so much, little octo turd. I'm pretty sure that's what it says. That's why I call my son a turd, because I stopped trying to cuss around him. So I call him a turd. All right, everybody. We're going to do a quick look. Yeah, Foxy. So what I'll do is we'll talk about an option for that then. Because they're kind of foxy. They're kind of foxes. All right. Here's the big reveal. First off, let's see. We've got the inspiration. Let me move my light around a little bit. We got the inspiration. I've got the drawing. And here we are. Several little differences from my drawing. I'm glad that I decided to put the fangs inside the stitch instead of adding them separately like the horn. Oh, yes. Give me a second, Charlie. I will definitely go get Cute Thulu. Give me a second here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to set this up. I'm going to go get Cute Thulu, and I'm going to go get Eevee. You guys let me know what you think. And then remember, if there's ones that you kind of are interested in seeing, let me know, and I will work on that. I will be right back.
I don't have the drugs.
You don't have the drugs? Do you happen to know where your Eevee is at?
In the other room.
You think so?
In my room.
Yeah, okay. Would you go get your Eevee for me,
In my
please?
room.
Yeah?
Come with me.
No, I'm trying to get another one. Where's your Eevee? Is it in here? Here, you look at Mommy's room real quick. I look over here. Vance, where's Evie?
Oh, I don't know.
You don't know? All right, I'm going to put this on real quick. All right, sorry about that. Here is, so this was what we did today, but let me get this slightly over here. Here is my Cthulhu. I got to move the camera way back. All right, let me get the camera way back here. I got to make sure I point it so that you can't see the background too much because
It says yes.
I don't want my son to be seen.
It says yes. Oh, great. Papa,
And here we go.
can I hold this?
Yeah, you can hold that.
Yeah.
Actually, why don't you leave it here for just a little bit? I
Your
gotta find
skin is.
Evie, buddy.
Your skin is. Your skin is.
You said scan it?
That's you,
I will, hey, step away from there,
Your
please.
skin is. Your skin is Spicer.
Vance, where is Evie? Where are all your Pokemon? Vance, where's Evie?
I asked mommy.
Most of your Pokemon are out here, so... Evie! I found a good chunk of the Pokemon out here. Vance, where's Evie?
That's Papa.
Oh, you found it?
My mommy good.
Cool, thank you. Here, I'll take it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Your skin
Thank
is.
you.
Your skin is.
It's nothing for me to scan. I just want to keep it for the last of the video here.
I love one.
All right, so here's my
I love
Cthulhu.
this. I love
He
this.
came out so cute. He's adorable and pretty accurate. Thank you so very much, Charlotte.
Papa, I love this.
I'm glad you do.
I love
So
Spicer.
here's our Cthulhu. I've got the tentacle face. We added the fins and the ears. We got the eyebrows, hands, feet, and the posable wings. The posable wings are a huge thing. I love these posable wings. And then doing it so he's kind of slightly peeking out, I think works out really well. His color's a little bit darker than it looks like in the camera.
More Pokemon. Oh, that's great.
And then, Foxy, so you can see, here's my Goofy Eevee. I'm going to move this one forward, just the camera forward again.
I think this by doing.
Sorry, trying to unscrew everything here. This one was done as a request. Somebody had actually wanted the Eevee, and they requested it look like a Chihuahua mixed with a crumpled up piece of paper.
Look.
So I don't stuff that. Didn't stuff the tail. Gave it they drew up a face that they had, and I gave it the bangs, and then I gave it the Chihuahua type legs. And here's something fun: if you wind it with a Cthulhu and any of your others, it'll hug. It's an ancient hug. And since the wings actually have an armature inside of them, I think that they will pretty well hang up on other things as well. Like you could hang them from the curtains, from the chandelier, on a wrecking ball. Put the holes into the wings as well, which I think was a lot of fun to do. Kind of gives them that kind of ancient evil look. There we go. That's some decent light on there. All right, everybody. This wound up being a short day. I'm going to get these out of the way. I made the spider whack, which is what my son was calling it. This was my sketch. This is where we landed. Let me go ahead and move in just a little bit one more time. And I think we're going to call it a day on that. I think it turned out pretty well, pretty fun. Goofy and cute. Yeah, almost done, buddy. Thank you so much, Charlotte. I really hope you guys had some fun. Wednesday, I'm going to be working on my headless horse mouse. Hey, shh, for just a moment, please. Wednesday, I'm going to be working on my headless horseman mouse. I'm going to be making the jack-o'-lantern head and maybe starting some other project as well. I'm not 100% sure what. Maybe I'll finish off my Coraline jumping mouse. If you guys have any suggestions, any requests for what I should do on Mondays, or any other weird or scary plushes you'd like to see me make, wait. Please let me know in comments. Follow me. I'm going to be doing a giveaway very soon. We're going to be giving away this mouse. He's going to have accessories that will attach to his hat and to his hand with the magnets that I've sewn in. So keep an eye out for that. I hope you have a great night, and I will see you guys in a couple days. Bye.